Okay, Jade.
So anyway, you want to do the...
No, this is what we do every time we come to a new hotel room.
Okay.
We look for the Gideon Bible.
Right.
And then we go to the first chapter right here. Okay?
Uh-huh.
And we take our Sharpie and we add once upon a time. And that's the little ellipses.
Oh.
There you go.
Yeah.
And I like to add my little sticker so people can find my YouTube channel so they can, talk to me about why I did that.
Right. Oh, that's cool. Oh, I forgot. I was starting to tell you something, and then I got sidetracked. I was saying that they did something on TV, on the Huffington Post about celebrating Richard Pryor's birthday, even though he's been gone.
Me too.
There we go. And they said, they had a bunch of, like, a slideshow of sayings, and the one that just totally cracked me up, and I actually took I actually saved it, and it said, you know why vampires are afraid of crucifixes? They're allergic to bullshit.
That's good.
I love that. It's just, so I took a screenshot of that, and I've saved it, so I have to find some place to use it sometime or other. So.
So yeah, that actually spawned like this very long conversation with Rogie.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, I better just leave the camera running. So we just talked about gun control. Yeah. I actually get like the people who are afraid that we're going to lose our pistols because of that, that slippery slope argument of if they try to control what kind of firearms we can use and they only want us to only have hunting firearms,
right.
Then when it finally comes time for us to want to overthrow our government, we're only going to have hunting firearms.
Yes.
Which, seriously though, the hunting firearms are the best for hunting anything, including humans.
Right. Right.
But there is a purpose for an AK-47,
right.
and it's just that the point where I don't follow that argument is anybody who uses that argument normally thinks that the time for that overthrowing of government is right now.
Right.
And I'm like, whoa, wait, I'm let me grab a Mountain Dew first and think about this,
Yeah.
Because, I'm not ready. I like the internet.
Yeah.
And I get a lot of enjoyment out of my life. And whatever things that are bad that are happening really have not given me such a bad life. I like my life.
One of the things I find very interesting right now with a lot of what's going on with people, all these, they're called preppers now.
Yes.
Oh yeah, we met one at the last stop.
Yeah, and they're going out. They think, and the religious right. Now, all preppers, of course, aren't religious, but there are all these people who think that the world is going to come to an end one way or another, whether it's Armageddon or the Mayan calendar or the United States is going to fall apart.
I always thought the Mayan calendar thing was stupid because, wouldn't they have seen the Spanish coming if they knew the world was
yeah,
going
I know.
to end in 2012?
Well, it also doesn't fit for a lot of other reasons, but
Yeah.
people make stuff up. But what is so funny is what poor students of history we are.
Mm-hmm.
Because back in the 1970s, the same thing was going on. People were getting together, going out in the wilderness, saving their food, forming these little communities because the end of the world was going to come. I even met a guy who tried to persuade me to run off with him.
In the 1970s.
1970s, yes.
Wow.
Because he had this little group with their little compound, and they were armed and ready for the end of the world because the government was going to collapse any minute now. In the 1970s. I'm hearing the same arguments today that I heard back then.
Did it have to do with fiat currency?
Pardon?
Fiat currency?
Yes.
Not having our currency backed by gold.
Oh yeah, that was back then too. There's nothing new here. Things get recycled periodically. And
Especially fashion.
Yes, you're right. So what these people are doing is they don't quite seem to understand that the United States was falling apart back then. We've been going to have the end of the world many. I found a website that actually has a list of all the end of the worlds. It's hysterical. That didn't happen. The end of the world is going to come any minute. The government is going to fall apart. Oh, and by the way, during the Roosevelt administration, it was going to fall apart too, because Roosevelt was a socialist. The people who are accusing...
he was a socialist?
Yes.
Like the Obama
Franklin,
flavor
yes.
of socialism?
Yes. Yes.
Where you don't say that you're a socialist and you don't hold any actual socialist positions, but you are considered a socialist because people disagree with you?
Well, you see what happened, you have to remember, Roosevelt got us out of the Depression partly by, well, it was sort of bullshit, but it worked, because when people feel better, they do better. So what he did was he did a lot of make work, get people going, and some of the stuff he did actually turned out to be illegal, some of the programs he did. But you know, he had the WPA and programs like, you know what that is? Because basically the government hired people to do stuff. Near where I live, there is a culvert that has the date on it of like 1939 or something, and it's a beautiful hand-laid stone. Our government hired out-of-work people because, you know, before Roosevelt was elected, you know, Hoover was president, and people, there were so many people out of work during the Depression, they actually gathered, this is kind of funny too, because you'll like this, in these little settlements in like Washington, D.C. and places, and they were called Hoovervilles. It was sort of Occupy Washington back then. You should look into Hoovervilles.
Well, I hadn't ever drawn the comparison.
Well, it's all these out-of-work people. Well, it's different, but it's similar. Because they're saying we've had it now.
They were actually doing it out of complete necessity, weren't they? I mean, a lot of people who joined the Occupy movement actually weren't to that point of actually needing to be there yet.
They were preemptive. The Hoovervilles were desperation. But there are some similarities. I'm not saying they're necessarily parallel, but there are some similarities. But you're right. Occupy was people were smart enough to start it before they got to the point where they were desperate. So Roosevelt formed all these programs and put people to work. And he sent them off across the country, building roads, building culverts. There is, the Long Beach Airport, I understand, has or at least had, a beautiful mosaic floor that was hand-laid by WPA workers. This was the work, I forget what the WPA stands for, Workmen's Administration something. But, so thousands of people were put on the government payroll to do all this work, and it was stuff that needed to do. They went to the parks, and they built structures in parks. They built roads and trails in parks. They did work, infrastructure work, all over the country, and the government paid them for it. They also housed them. But that was socialism. Now, what's interesting today is, many of the infrastructure of many of our cities are falling apart.
Yeah.
Maybe we need WPA again.
Yeah. But can you imagine the screaming? If Obama tried to do what Roosevelt did?
Well, I think I wouldn't mind, some of these corporations if they could just, have, the Coca-Cola Golden Gate Bridge.
Yeah.
And, if it falls apart, it's their name.
Yeah.
They need to stick some more money into it.
What was it that James Pope said about the harbor or whatever they closed? Like if it just paid 1% of its taxes or whatever, it could open up all the schools in that
the
area.
Occupy Oakland people were blockading the harbor.
Yeah.
And the harbor was not paying any taxes to the city, and a 1% tax on that harbor would reopen every public school that was closed and pay for a lot of stuff in the city. But they had enough money to lobby to keep that from happening.
Yes.
And
yeah.
so they unlike any other business in the city, they were a tax-free thing, and there was a lot of parts of the harbor that were paid for by public funds.
Yes. Well, of course they were, and maintained. And all the roads to the harbor.
Yes.
And the dredging for the harbor. And so on and so forth. Yes.
You're well versed in this.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's we pay for a lot of stuff that we get the indirect use of. In the case of the harbor, we get the indirect use of. But they would have to, again, raise their prices a small amount to be able to pay for all the schools, like you said. Mm-hmm. And the Oakland Harbor the Port of Oakland is a huge, very busy port, a very important port. The Port of Long Beach, of course, is basically bigger, busier, and more important, but Oakland is very important too. But people don't really see where the money is, as in this case, where you have the Port of Oakland that is subsidized by the people. Mm-hmm. And we understand that to a certain extent because the Port of Oakland, a lot of jobs come out of the Port of Oakland. A lot of goods come through the Port of Oakland. It's good for the community. And we know that you're going to have to pay for roads and lights. But a lot of people don't realize that, that we are doing that. We're paying for the roads, the trucks that come out of Oakland Harbor that take goods all over the country travel on these roads, and they beat the crap out of these roads, and the taxpayers repair the roads. Now that's okay, but how many people know that?
How many people can even realize the gravity of having heavy trucks go down a road? When you see one truck go down the road, you don't see the damage that truck is doing to the road over time. And they don't understand that over a long period of time, those trucks do take a toll on those roads when it comes time for them to be repaired.
I have a question, because my parents, like when I'm arguing with them on this sort of issue, I always, I'm always like they should pay their fair share and all this stuff. And my parents always answer, well, why should the rich be punished, like, by taking their wealth or whatever? Like, they always make that argument. Like, what would you say to that?
I would say we're not taking their wealth. And I would say that, we all should pay our fair share. The difference is that if somebody is making $50,000 a year, to take 10% of their income is huge. Because, that leaves them, quite a bit poor. If someone is making $50 million a year, to take 10% of their income is inconsequential to them. They can live perfectly well without it. To take 20% of their income is inconsequential to them. On top of which, they, by being rich, are privy to a whole lot of tax breaks. So they're never paying their fair share. Mitt Romney fought and fought and fought to keep his tax returns out of the public eye. He only allowed the last couple of years or so of his tax returns.
Yeah.
And the speculation is, and there's good reason to believe this, is that when he knew he was going to run for president, he started paying more tax on purpose. And before then, he was paying almost nothing.
I always thought it was weird, though, because, like, with these sorts of things, it's almost like you're paying rich people to hire you,
right,
so you could have a job, so you could have money. But then why are you paying them to hire you so you can get money? Like, it's almost like a corporate welfare system.
Now, it wouldn't be bad if you had rich people who were making a fortune and they were giving back, or they were treating their employees properly. But that's not what we're finding. When you look at these big corporations like Walmart, or you look at like Papa John's, what are they doing? They're not paying. I wouldn't complain about taxes to the rich so much if the money was,
well spent.
Well spent. And even if they're like a venture capitalist or something like that, or even in banking, their money is still coming from these big corporations who are not paying their employees a living wage. They're not providing them with decent health care. and they're keeping their hours down so they don't have to pay them decent welfare, or they're contracting out part of their business and then say, oh gee, we're not responsible for what those people do, which is what's happening to Walmart in the LA area. They're being sued because they've contracted their shipping out to another company, and the workers of that other company are suing because they're being mistreated. And I forget the exact details, I'll have to look it up. And they're also suing Walmart, and Walmart's saying, well, it's not us. And the workers are saying, really? Every box we pack says Walmart on it. How can you say that you're not responsible? This is a very old trick, and the company I work for did it, and lots of companies do it. You outsource. And you outsource to companies that pay even poorly. One of the big scandals, although it's not talked about so much anymore, is where they outsource janitorial services. Because the janitorial services rely on immigrants, many of whom don't speak English, many of whom are Hispanic, at least in this area. They are paid minimum wage or below because they only have part-time. They have no benefits, and they have a schedule so tight for their cleaning, it's almost impossible. They've gotten it down to, they have 5 seconds to empty a trash can. Yeah.
That's nuts.
It is. You cannot do your job properly the way they do it, but they have to do it within a certain amount of time. They've actually gotten it down to, doesn't make any difference what's in the trash can. Doesn't make any difference if you've got a day where everybody decided to have cleaning day. If you don't empty all your trash cans within 5 seconds, you can get fired or penalized or whatever. But the big companies, and this is these big computer companies, okay? Well, gee, it's not our responsibility. We've outsourced this to this other company. It's their responsibility. So there has been a big push to try to unionize these companies. The problem is many of these people are illegal, or have relatives or friends who are illegal, or are recent immigrants. And many recent immigrants are, especially a lot of recent immigrants from some places in Mexico, are very frightened of the authorities. Because where they're from, the cops are as corrupt as the crooks are. And when you come to them and you tell them, well, if you organize, the law will back you up, they don't believe it. And when their bosses say, yeah, you join the union, not only will you be out of work, we won't hire any of your family, we'll fire out your entire family. There are people out there who want jobs, we'll just fire you. And because there's a language barrier too, it's often hard to find this information. This has been a big scandal going on for at least 20 years, where they outsource janitorial services, and they also outsource security, rent-a-cops. Mm-hmm. Some of these people, what they make is absurd. How, you've got we used to joke about this, how could you have this big expensive company and the people that you're paying to sit in the lobby and to go around and check to make sure that nobody steals anything are being paid minimum wage? Seriously? So they outsource things, and that's a way to not have to pay decent wages. It's a way not to have to pay benefits. And it's a way that takes advantage of a usually very vulnerable population who has very few resources.
Definitely. I think a part of the solution is, because all these corporations they can't do anything to us. These people need our product and all this sort of stuff. They'll always come to us. You have to make an alternative, I think. And I think the best alternative is to sort of even just on an individual level, even if you could just say I start doing it myself and Michael starts doing it and you start doing it. I'm pretty sure you started it because I got the idea from you.
Yeah. I will never go. I've never been into a Walmart, but I was actually thinking of visiting the one in Salinas. Now I'm not going anywhere near it.
Well, the thing is, you've got to go and me and Michael get to going too, and then we tell our friends about it.
Right.
You pick up these skills like with knitting and stuff, and you kind of figure out how to make your own bed. I could grow a garden in my backyard and get some.
I garden every year, and I have a whole bunch of fruit trees and stuff like that.
And yeah, and have like make friends with some people in the community who
Right.
like to hunt and fish and stuff,
Right.
and you trade with them.
Exactly.
And you just keep the money out of it, like trade, like say Bob wants a sweater and
Right.
I need a chicken or something.
Right.
Like come to these agreements where we can just trade amongst ourselves and completely shut out the corporations and
Right.
stuff, and we'll just see how much they really need us.
Right.
And I think if we
So
could
you
just,
never say you trade.
we're gifting,
Right.
gifting.
Trading is taxable.
Trading is taxable?
It is.
Yes.
So we're starting the gifting culture.
Gifting is not taxable.
Exactly. I think you can.
If I choose, for instance, if I were to choose to send Michael a whole bunch of avocados, and he were to choose to send me something else, that would be perfectly fine.
Michael needs
But we wouldn't be trading,
some
would we?
tangible thing to
Huh?
gift back to people who gift to him, because
Right.
Michael doesn't have one of these.
As a matter of fact, I would be even careful enough to make sure I had a little bow or something. But no, if people want to do something for a friend, if you have a friend who does tile work and they're kind enough to help you with a project you have, and you do something else and you're kind enough to help them with the project they have. But if you actually trade, it is taxable.
Okay, so we'll start the gifting culture.
Yes,
So we can just shut out all these corporations because we can gift within the community.
exactly.
And with the internet, you have such a more broad
Exactly.
community. So like even if there's something I need that's not in my immediate area,
Right.
I can find someone for that because we have such a broad community
Right.
now with the internet and all that. So the gifting community could be really big.
Right. But yes, I think you've got a point there, a gifting community.
Yeah, we need
You
to.
say, I have some things. Hey, look, I've got these things. Does anybody want them?
Yeah.
And you could find some things that somebody else has they want. And it doesn't even have to be the next person. For instance, I could gift Michael.
Mm-hmm.
Michael could gift you. You could gift me. It doesn't have to be tit for tat. And especially if it isn't tit for tat, you can't say it's trading.
set up gifting circles.
Right. If
There's
you have a gift club or gifting groups, yeah.
Yeah.
You can say.
And this kind of crosses over into another group of people that I have talked to a lot, the preppers, who have actually had alternative currencies, where one of them in my area is the mountain hours,
Mm-hmm.
and the other one is the locos, the local stuff. But basically, they will sign up for the locos, and it's different than mountain hours, which is actually a currency,
Right.
which is very traceable as far as tax purposes, because it's just an alternate currency, and you could just make an exchange rate
Right.
and immediately start taxing it. But the locos are a way where there's a central server saying, okay, this person has received this much
Right.
in locos in like hours, but you're allowed to go like a whole 40 hours in the hole, and you can build up credits, but you can't do anything with them.
Yeah.
It's just like a standing that you have with the community. Basically, it doesn't really give you any. You can't cash out
Right.
at all, because the only place that's kept track is that one place, and basically the only reason they do keep track is if anyone were to get more than 40 hours in the hole, then everything else that they do would be reviewed
Right.
by the administrator, and there might be a reason somebody needs to go more than 40 hours in the hole, but that need will be looked at. But the only thing that you could possibly get is, somebody might see that you have accrued a whole bunch of hours by giving your services to people.
Right.
And I was thinking about just signing up, because one of the things that I do have as an asset is my truck.
Right.
And just, a lot of people don't want to own a truck or own anything that is a gas guzzler.
Right.
But when it comes time for, them to move or
Yes.
move something big, all of a sudden they're looking for, their best friend with a truck.
Right. Right.
So I was just going to sign up with that as something that I do. You know, I'm kind of useless as a mover too because I'm you know, I'm not a very energetic person, but at least I have a truck.
You were
Right.
pretty energetic when you were spitting fire because we couldn't fit the couch in there.
Oh yeah.
And then it started raining hard as I get in the truck.
Yeah, I'm not going to be out in the rain moving furniture. That's not happening.
Oh, yeah.
I was just gonna take off because it had my phone and stuff in it, so I was just gonna throw it in the truck and keep doing stuff.
No.
Like with these, the material is thick enough
Yeah.
that I don't have to worry about it getting too wet, unless it's like torrential.
Right.
But like with this is pretty thin.
Well, I'm your typical Californian. I know I have a umbrella, I just don't know where it is.
He gave me an
So I just get wet.
like he gave me one to use.
You know, we are kind of dumb about rain. We tend to forget it exists.
When I was a kid in Texas, every time it rained, we were outside having a ball.
Yeah.
It's like we used to like just run around, even if it was like tornado looking weather. We were like, we don't care, we're gonna play in rain.
Now, when the Pineapple Express comes through, that is fun.
That's what Jason was talking about.
The Pineapple Express is a storm that comes out of Hawaii. And the rain is fantastic. It's warm. And it's like these big, the only way I can describe it is just like these big, soft drops of rain. It feels so good to be out there and just, yes. I love that. It doesn't happen too often, but the Pineapple Express, I'm out there getting wet. It's fun. But mostly we, don't. And this rain isn't bad. This is the standard rain. The really cold, icy rain is nasty. This one's okay. Except for the amount, but it happens periodically. And the Russian River is always threatening to flood. So, and that's up north, so I think that's where the worst has been.
I thought of a place I could get yarn. There's this this place in town where they sell like random stuff they had in the building when they moved in, and like some people put their stuff in there. Like I think you pay a fee and they put your stuff in their stuff. They
What
had
I
some
get-
yarn there one time. I hope they
When
sell
I
it.
get the apartment above the garage fixed, you have to come out for a while.
Oh, that'd be so cool.
Because Capitola, downtown Capitola, it's like all these cool little shops and artists and stuff. We also have, it'd be cool if you could come out during when we have can't even think of what it's called, but you get artist studios, and you get to go visit all the different artist studios.
Ooh.
And we could go down to like Monterey and Pacific Grove and Carmel, where all the artist things are. It's just lots of stuff out here.
Jade.
Art is very big.
Jade.
Even a couple of our underpasses have art.
Yeah.
On the underpass. One has this, it's just really, really cool. It depicts like archaeology.
I think the only thing that would keep me from moving to California, like as soon as I had like the kind of money it would take to live out here, is that I have ferrets, and in California they're considered a wild animal.
Yeah, they're working on changing that though.
I hope they do, because I want to live out here, but I don't want to leave my babies.
Right, well, what they're working on,
I think
and
they get really depressed if they change
a lot of
owners.
people have ferrets in California, they just don't tell anybody.
Oh.
What they're working on is allowing ferrets as long as they're fixed.
Oh, like in the pet stores in a lot of states, you can't buy them from a pet store
Right.
unless they're spayed and neutered and have their
Right.
stink gland removed. So mine already have all that.
See, the problem here is our native ferrets could not compete with, the domesticated type of ferret if they were to get out and start breeding. We already have problems with things like the red fox that is competing with the native foxes, and because the native foxes are smaller, the red foxes are larger. And I've seen a local ferret. I saw when the poor little thing was hit on the road, and I don't know how old it was. It would be like half the size of one of your ferrets. So they just don't want them getting loose here because they can't compete. But if you make sure that, if they have to be fixed, and there are a lot of ferret owners. As a matter of fact, there's a ferret owners association here in California. And there are people that work on it. Basically, as long as nobody says anything, who cares? But yeah, that's the big concern is if they get loose and breed, and that always causes problems. I mean, Germany has a raccoon problem
Yeah.
because somebody took some raccoons to Germany to raise at a fur farm. They got loose, and the raccoons are not native to
That's
Germany.
usually how it happens, like with dingoes in Australia.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Rabbits in
Rabbits in Australia,
Australia. Rabbits in Australia are terrible for the local wildlife.
I know.
Because they eat so much. And the kangaroos and stuff, they can't
Right.
compete. And they put up these barbed
I
wire
know.
fences to try to keep the rabbits out. Rabbits go under the fence.
I know.
Kangaroos get stuck in the fence.
I know. And then there's Florida that has cane toads and what is it, pythons that they're having a problem with now,
Yeah, I think so, because like they get
And-
out and you
and
only
the-
find them again when they're really huge.
and iguanas and stuff. Yeah, I know. They keep dragging these great big huge giant snakes out of the swamps. And okay, you'll be ready for your questions.
Almost.
Okay.
It's gonna do it.
Just a point at the end of this very long ramble video. I've been doing these rambles for a very long time,
Uh-huh.
and I feel quite safe that anyone who would listen to the ramble for that long, like it's okay to be like throwing out all these different geographical locations that doc drop yourself.
Yeah. Well, as I said,
But
yeah.
as soon as I start hearing like locations around where we are, I'm like, no, stop.
I've mentioned that I live in Santa Cruz County. I've mentioned that my real name is Jade. My online name is Meleagrisfelis, which means turkey cat, because Meleagris galopavo is the genus and species for turkeys, and felis is, of course, cats. So that's basically what it means. But yeah, my real name is Jade. That's fine.
That's an awesome name, by the way.
And yeah, my mom named me from a book by Pearl Buck. Pearl Buck was a daughter of a missionary, and she grew up in China. And she wrote some very, for her time, very forward-thinking literature, I guess you could say. She wrote The Good Earth. She wrote this book called Dragon Seed. And the main character was Jade, who was a not exactly conventional Chinese wife. And The Good Earth was a classic, and it takes place in China too. If you have never read The Good Earth, you should. Pearl Buck won the Nobel Prize in Literature. She also started a group to try to help the children of American GIs around the world, because we would go to different places like in Vietnam and Korea, and there would be, children born from liaisons between, military personnel and natives. And apparently all the other countries took care of those children. The French, the British, we didn't. We abandoned them. They were not considered American. They were not given any rights. Whatever happened to them, nobody cared. So Pearl Buck found this outrageous. So she started this group to help care for these children. Because she thought that, and I do too, the fact that, it is partly our responsibility. If you're going to send
If you're
men
gonna try to hack the
overseas,
gene-
and they're going to be away from their families for extended periods of time, and they're going to make friendships with the locals, things are going to happen. And frequently, of course, children who were mixed race were not treated very well in their home nations. So, but anyway, that's Pearl Buck and Dragon Seed. They actually made a movie about The Good Earth, starring Paul Muni, and the main players are Caucasian, but they did a really good job of it. They also made a movie of Dragon Seed, the book I was named from. The casting is a little odd, to put it mildly, but once you get past the casting, it's not so bad, because Katharine Hepburn played Jade.
Ah,
How non-Asian does Katharine Hepburn look?
pretty non-Asian.
Yeah.
Well, to be fair, you don't look that Asian either.
Could be because I'm German and Irish and not at all Asian. Just the name. But yeah, that's fine. I'm Jade, and I live in Santa Cruz County, and that I've said that on other things, and I don't care about that. So I just leave the specific part of the county I live in off, and my last name. Although I frequently I may have sent you a PM with my real name. I do that to a lot of people. I just choose who I do it to. I'm not that picky.
I've run into all sorts of pickiness, and I'm on road trip, so I just automatically assume the most pickiness out of everyone, because
Well, I even tell people sometimes
it's
when they
net
try
security.
when they try to refer to me, they try to pronounce my name. I just say, would you just say Jade? It's so much easier. Don't worry about the Meleagrisfelis. You know, I grew up speaking Latin. Although sometimes when I speak scientific Latin or I try to say something, I screw up and I use church Latin because that's what I grew up with and there's a different pronunciation. So sometimes my Latin can be a little screwy because I'm slipping between versions. It's just habit. You know, you don't spend most of your life learning one, and then in high school I studied regular Latin, and it was hysterical in our Latin classes in Catholic school because we were all mispronouncing everything.
I'm gonna step out real quick. I'm a terrible smoker.
Horrible, terrible smoker
Terrible,
person.
horrible.
Okay.